The final lecture is going to be about something really interesting, and this thing is happiness. And because we are on a software development conference, we're going to debug happiness. And Vlado and Rumen from VMware, they're going to present themselves. We'll talk about debugging happiness. Applause. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rumen.
And I'm Vladimir. It's very nice to meet you and see that you all waited for this lecture. But before we start, I think it's really important to thank the organizers and all the crew that made these amazing days. I personally liked it a lot. So I will encourage you to give a round of applause to the whole team that make everything possible. Okay, now to our topic. I would like to start with a question to you. Where do you think Bulgaria ranked among the happiest nations on earth? Do you think we're in the first half? Somewhere at the top? How many of you think we're the first half? Okay, that were 3 hands. 4. I admire your optimism here. I really admire it. And how many of you were among the bottom of the ranking? Now we are getting closer. Okay, we turn out that we're 105th out of 156 nations. And when I first saw this fact, I became very sad because I have born and raised in this country. I really love it, and I want me, people around me, and everybody in this country to be happy. And I started to think, what can we do so that in the next year or 10 years to be a little bit up there? That's my question, what should we do? And then there was a long period of silence in my head. I didn't have the answer for that. Because I didn't know what happiness is, what it means. So I first had to answer this question to myself. What is happiness? I thought this would be quite difficult answer, but it turns out it was one of the easier ones. It took me only 20 seconds to find out what happiness is. But there's a problem. After eating 1 kilo of pizza, I stopped being happy and start to feel regret for myself. And I wish I have never done it. So I asked myself, what makes me happy? Personally, I like riding a bike in the mountains. I really, really love it. It's great. There's a adrenaline rush. I do it with great friends. The nature is nice. And if you want, do it. It's really marvelous. But again, there's a problem. If you look close at this picture, you see some vertical things there called trees. And as we know, they're a bit hard, and they don't like to move. So inevitably, I get too close to them. And instead of happiness, I feel pain and sorry for myself for the next 30 days. So this should not be the answer. I have to look elsewhere. And what could be happiness? Well, it's trivial. Money. Most people say money can buy us happiness, and this is true. I can buy a bunch of toys, I can travel all around the world, buy a new yacht, helicopter, car, whatever, and this will make me happier, right? Wrong. It turns out that money and happiness are totally unrelated. For the last 50 years, for example, in the United States, the average income has more than doubled. However, the percentage of very happy people in this nation has remained totally constant. And this is true not only for the US and 37 more countries that did this research. In all these countries, the results were exactly the same. And what's the reason behind this? Because we always want more. No matter how much money we get, no matter how many toys we have, it's never enough for us. We're happy initially, but then we take it for granted and want more. How many of you know who is this guy?
Wow.
Okay, that's almost half of you. For those who don't know, this is Nick Vujicic. He's Australian and was born with tetraamelia syndrome, so effectively he has no arms and legs. But despite that, he turns out to be the very best speaker of our times. And he said something very clever that still resonates in my head. He said that money, drugs, sex, alcohol, pornography, fame, fortune never satisfies. They're never enough. Yes, initially when we get them, we feel good, but then we want more. And what happens when we want more than we have? Instead of happiness, we start to feel sadness, depression, and greed. So these things buy us temporary joy, but we should not think this is true happiness. It's something else. Okay, I started with the problem that I have, and I was looking for a solution. So what have I learned so far? What do I know about happiness up to this point? Totally nothing. I said a bunch of things, but all of them are hollow. They're not what I was looking for. So I have to change my approach. At this time, I was probably spent a few dozens of weekends to read some books, look all around the internet, ask my friends what they think about it. But I haven't found that formula of happiness that could be uniquely applied to everyone. So I have to change my approach and change the resources that I use. There is one place which I like to turn up whenever I have problems. And so far, it has managed to find solutions for all the problems that I have. And so I turn up to the Bulgarian philosophical holy grail of Bege Mama. I know you're laughing, but there's a thread there called "What is happiness for you?" And to be honest, there are quite good answers there. Some said that happiness is to be healthy. Others say happiness is to have great friends, a good bond with them. Others say simple things as to have no major worries. And all of them are true. I read all the threads related to happiness in Bege Mama, but I still haven't found my answer, my unique formula that I was looking for. And at this point, I realized that true happiness requires wisdom. Unfortunately, this is not a quality that I have. So I turned up for help from a friend of mine.
And we contacted another source, Google. Initially, we were happy, like Google knows how to be happy, but when you look at the details, 3 billion results. So we have another problem. And we needed to have a criteria, we needed a way to filter out those results. So we decided that here are the things that we trust. First of all, if something has been true for the last, let's say, 1,000 years, probably it will be true for at least until the end of HackConf, so it's good enough. And these are, by the way, primarily philosophical and religious sources, so we call them timeless sources. The next thing that we, of course, trust is the best that mankind currently has. This is the science and the latest achievements of science. And as Vlado mentioned, we need wisdom. So we made a brief research about what actually wisdom is. As it turns out, it's a complex topic itself. Long story short, by definition, elderly people are wise. Yeah, that's really serious. There are interesting papers about the components of wisdom, and in almost all of them, actually all but one, elderly people excel. The only place where younger are better than older people is speed of cognition, but speed is not the most important thing. So this is where we would focus. And before we start engaging our brains into digesting like 3.5 billion records from Google, I have a question for you. Do you know why do we have brains? What brain is used for? By humans, by animals? Why do we have brains? Anyone?
Exist decision making or answers?
Anything else? Okay. Some of you might reason that we need brains to think, to perceive the world, and that would be wrong. The actual reason for brains is to produce muscle movement, because that's the only way for us to interact with the outer world. Okay, there is another way, through sweating, but we don't care about this. And if you think for a while, grass and trees, they don't move, they don't have brains, but there is another more interesting example. Behold the sea squirt. This is a sea animal. In its juvenile life, it flows through the ocean, and at some point in time, it decides to attach to a rock, and that's forever. It's permanent. So the first thing it does when it attaches to the rock is to actually digest its own brain and nervous system for food, because it doesn't need it anymore. It doesn't need to spend the luxury of energy expenditure of this system. So let's agree that the reason for brains is to cause action, to produce muscle movements. We need brains to do something, actually, not only to think. So back on our initial question, what is happiness? Luckily, happiness is a topic as old as the world. So there are evidence of people working on this topic and actually having pretty good, actually amazing achievements dating back 2,500 years ago in India, China, Greece. And most interesting part is that there are remarkable similarities between both those ancient thinkers among themselves, although they didn't have WhatsApp or messaging to communicate, but also whatever they believed is something that the current science of happiness also agrees with. So let's turn to a scientific source. What does science say about happiness, and is it actionable? This lady, Loretta Breuning, published an article where she said that happiness is a bunch of hormones in our brains, and this seems actionable. If we could manage to manipulate those hormones, if we could affect our body in a way, probably we could benefit from that and be happier. So now the question is, how do we affect our bodies? Basically, whatever we put our bodies in contact with, whatever we put into our body, changes us. And we need just to find the way that changes those things that affect our happiness. And if you think for a while, the water that you drink, the food that you ate, it does some change in your body. And if you know it or not, but on a daily basis, you consume stuff that actually affects your body and affects those hormones that are responsible for happiness. Theanine, for example, it has a relaxing effect. So you know about caffeine, nicotine. There are many more, like psilocybin, mescaline, heroin, morphine. And basically those things that have in at the end, be careful with them. So let's talk about the first hormone that this lady mentioned. Endorphins, it's contracted from endogenous morphine, which means internally produced morphine. Their goal is to activate opioid receptors in our body, and this way they suppress body pain. In general, opioids are those chemicals that suppress body pain, increase pleasure, and have generally calming effect on our body. They have antidepressing effect. Now the question is how to manipulate them. And there is a really simple trick. No, it's a joke. Those hormones help us keep going. Because imagine the following situation. You are hunting for your family, they are hungry at home. You keep chasing this rabbit, and at some point you are like, oh, sore muscle, I need to stop, sorry. Or imagine the opposite. You're being chased by a bear, and you're running, and if sore muscles make you stop, it's just game over. But good news, we have a factory inside ourselves. It's organic, gluten-free, vegan factory for painkillers. And we can utilize it. How? Well, exercise. Once you start exercising, the body starts preparing to heal or mask the problems that you're going to cause. Those micro tears, micro fractures. Your body starts producing endorphins. And if you do not exercise long, if you don't overdo it, you will be able to use those exercises to actually give you joy. The next hormone, dopamine. It is referred to as the reward hormone. Its role is to help you recognize the reward. the dopamine itself doesn't give you pleasure. Pleasure is produced by opioids. But dopamine's role is to help you recognize an activity and generate a wanting for it, so that next time you want to do it again. This is the mechanism for the body to make you repeat life-sustaining activities. So when do we get dopamine? When you see a target, you get a small dose of dopamine so that you have the stimulus to go there. When you get closer to a target, dopamine again. When you reach the target, dopamine again. When you close this gyro issue, dopamine again. When you have a to-do list and you scratch the item from the to-do list, you feel better. When you eat, even if you're not hungry, however, dopamine. So, a tip about dopamine: how can we manipulate it in our favor? Set goals, break them into smaller goals. Whenever you achieve this goal, or any of the goals, just celebrate the success. Pat yourself on the back, scratch the to-do item, close the gyro issue. There is, however, a problem with it, with dopamine, I mean. It's highly addictive. It's not the dopamine, it's the activity, but still, it's dangerous. Alcohol, nicotine, gambling, smartphone.
Well, smartphones? Really?
Yeah, like imagine the following. Tomorrow morning, Monday, I wake up, and next to my bed I have a glass of whiskey. So the first thing I do is I wake up, I take this glass, take a sip.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Then throughout the day, I carry this glass with me from room to room. The glass is with me. I take a sip from time to time. When I go to a meeting, the first thing I do is put the glass on the table. While others are gathering, I just take a few sips. During the meeting, nobody's watching, again.
So you're an alcoholic then, right?
Yeah, I think I'm an addict. So string replace glass of whiskey with smartphone. Are you an addict?
Oops.
Oops.
That's worrying.
And there is another problem with dopamine. We easily get used to things and we don't appreciate them much after a certain period of time. But there is a trick, the power of gratitude. If you are this type of people who like to visit self-improvement seminars or visit conferences, yeah, Alex, I know you. You have heard about the power of gratitude. So I've read a lot of articles. I've actually followed all the advices I saw, like keep a diary right before you go to sleep, remind yourself of 3 things of the day that you're grateful for and be really grateful, things like that, but I don't know, it didn't resonate. I understood the power of gratitude when I found a study that explains the value of something and how it diminishes with time. So before you buy something, you value it that much. When you have it, a little bit less. After a month, a little bit less. After a year, it's like you accept it for granted. You forget to enjoy it. But if you lose it, the study shows that you actually start to value it even more than before you had it. And here is the trick. Here is the power of gratitude. When you are truly grateful, when you really feel grateful for something, you put yourself into a different position, like you imagine the universe where you have lost that thing. And you really start appreciating it, which helps you to reset the baseline. So use the power of gratitude. It really works. The next hormone, oxytocin. It is known as the bonding hormone. And by the way, serotonin and dopamine have also a role in bonding and social activities. And while we are talking about social activities and relationships and relations, there are many studies that deal with this topic, and the outcome is awesome. They say that social activities, social well-being, and bonding affect your life and your life expectancy, and also they affect your happiness. So you can have them both. You can have longer life and happier life as long as you really bond with people and you have a social life. And humans are by nature social animals. So probably this is why it works. The last hormone we are going to discuss is serotonin. It is produced in our body by a conversion of amino acid called L-tryptophan. As a friend of mine said, tryp-to-fun is the name of the amino acid. The good news is that we can affect both serotonin and tryptophan in our body by our rhythm. And what is rhythm? Rhythm has three components. The first component is activity, the second component is rest, and the third component is diet. So what are the advices? Again, exercise. However, in this case, the focus is on something different. Recognizing that you are choosing to exercise actually changes the neurochemical effect on your brain, and you will feel happier. If you feel like you are forced to exercise, the effect on your happiness would not be actually good. So if you have time, just try to convince yourself. Because here is the problem. When we don't feel like exercising, we don't do it. We piggyback on chips and TV, and that's it. However, very often, the problem is that our serotonin level is low, and we actually need the exercise. Other activities that affect serotonin, bright light. I'm sure that after the meeting, I will be much happier. If you turn around, you'll figure out why. 3,000 lux, that's what scientists say. Sunlight because of vitamin D3, and massage, especially if it is performed by your significant other. And that's not a joke. No, really, there are many, because serotonin affects the development of fetus and young babies, it is very important, and there are many studies done on pregnant women and mothers who just gave birth. And it turns out that massage can increase serotonin levels up to 30%. And this is massage done twice a week by your significant other for 15 minutes. Rest. About rest, there is only one advice here. Rest doesn't work if you're not tired. It's simple. No, it doesn't work on your happiness, of course. Otherwise, yeah, I like to stay in bed on Sundays. Regarding diet, just make sure that you have plenty of tryptophan, because if you deplete your resources of tryptophan, neither serotonin nor vitamin B3 will be produced in your body. You can Google for tryptophan-rich foods. I would suggest pumpkin seeds and tofu. Also, smoothies. And vegetable ones, actually.
Okay, thank you. Now I have the answer, right? I know that happiness is these 4 hormones, which I didn't remember, the serotonin, the something in, and other things within. But there's still a problem. I understand this much about this part, and I don't know Mandarin, because I am not good at neither Mandarin, neither chemistry. So I have to look for more information. And as I said earlier, we're going to talk not only about the science, but we're going to ask also what other people said. So I tried to reach out the oldest creature that I know on this planet, but unfortunately didn't get a reply, probably because he's 600 years old and doesn't have the concept of WhatsApp or Viber. So I tried to reach out someone younger. I asked my grandma what she thinks. I asked her, what is happiness for you? She said 2 very simple things: to be healthy and to have no major worries. Which, hey, is it really that simple? And it turns out that it could really be that simple. Because whenever we have a major worry, we have a health issue, a financial issue, you have broke the build on the night before the release, you drop the production database, you cannot stop thinking about this problem. You stop to notice all the good stuff that happens around you. You stop to notice your friends, the good weather, the roses outside. You are solely focused to fix this problem. So you can never be happy in this situation. So lack of major worries is prerequisite to happiness. And it's important to stress out that the key word here is major. Something that is major for me now may be absolutely nothing tomorrow. So it's important for us to define what is major worry for ourselves. And The other thing that she said is to be healthy. And I thought, hey, this is the same. Right? Because if I'm not healthy, I'll be worried about it. And for me, healthy is to have no disease, my bones to be in one shape, so I can probably walk and ride a bicycle. But it turns out that I was a bit wrong. Actually, this was the definition during the 19th century, to have freedom of disease. However, during 1946, the definition was expanded. Now, happiness means to have no physical diseases, but again, to have no mental diseases and to be social well. So what does it mean? Okay, the mental part is easy. So we have no mental disease, we can concentrate something, we can think. Okay, that's this one. But what does it mean to be social well? As Rumen said earlier, Aristotle said that we are social animals. We are happy when we are surrounded with more humans around us. And where we're going to, in order to socialize with somebody, we should be socially acceptable for him. So when are we actually? The thing is, we can bond with somebody, we feel good with somebody when the things we believe, when our values actually match the values of those around us. So, in order to be happy, we should know what values are. And if you know what values are, it will be easier to socialize with others, right?
And this is my favorite part of our talk, because here is where scientific and timeless sources meet. On next slides, we'll see that biochemistry, philosophy, religion, religion, and psychology are saying the same things about happiness. There is just one prerequisite. We need to understand the term values. So, 2,000 years ago, people believed, and they still believe, that there are external and internal aspects of happiness. Pizza obviously is external, but there should be something else. Because external things never satisfy. I would rephrase Nick Vujicic's statement to pizza, money, drugs, sex, alcohol, pornography are never enough. They never satisfy. Although I had cases where alcohol was more than enough. So what are values? Good news, there are many sources that discuss values, philosophical, religious, and psychology also talks about values. They are very prescriptive there. I'll give a few examples. The 10 Commandments of Christianity, they somehow express Christianity values. If you live according to them, you will be happy. That's what they say. Buddhism has its own version. They have the Eightfold Path and the 5 precepts. By the way, the 5 precepts pretty much resemble the 10 Commandments of Christianity. Philosophy, I'll give example with what Plato said. He said there are universal values. These are beauty, goodness, and truth. So what universal means? Vlado likes pizza. I like chocolate. He doesn't like chocolate. I don't like pizza. So there are things that apply to some people, but there are some things that apply to everybody. And keep in mind that Plato said this like 23, 25 centuries ago, and nobody managed to disprove it. Actually, current science says the same thing. But we need something actionable, right? That's how we started. And psychology is here to help. Let's see how psychology evolved. And I'll give example with the 3 Viennese schools. So you have all heard about Sigmund Freud. He founded the first Viennese school. Then his ideas were developed further by Alfred Adler. And Viktor Frankl founded the 3rd Viennese school. So what Frankl says about happiness is that permanent happiness is when you act according to your values. And there are very good news here. He also has prescriptions on what exactly to do so that we act according to our values. He says that we have 3 options to apply our values. Those three options are experiential, behavioral, and attitudinal. What are their characteristics? So experiential and behavioral values, we can apply them on demand. Whenever we feel a little bit low, not very happy, we can invest some time in doing stuff and we will become a little bit happier. Experiential, they're very easy. Sometimes you need to invest just 3 seconds of your life and you will get immediate return of investment. However, for 3 seconds of effort, you cannot expect to become the happiest person in the world, but you will get some joy for sure. Regarding behavioral, they usually require a little bit more effort, and often it is continuous effort. But good news is that while you are doing this effort, you are happy, you like doing it, that's one. And the second thing is there are results, so you can look back and you can enjoy the results that you achieved. Attitudinal, they are situational. You cannot make them. You have to react on the situation. They are high risk, high reward. If you do the right thing at a given situation, you will be happy with the result until the end of your life. Whenever you look back, you will be proud of yourself. But that's too abstract. Let's get to actual examples. So anything that is fulfillment in putting your soul into something, like enjoyment of arts or nature, is considered to be the experiential way of connecting with values. I still remember the first time I climbed, I visited the 7 Relay Lakes. It was August, early morning. I went to the top and I was just mesmerized by the view. And that's one option. We have Vituši here. You can always smell a flower, hear a good song. How much would it cost? Okay, behavioral are, you connect with those values when you make things become real through creative activity, like work. That's actually good news. When we are at work, we create stuff, and those things make us happy, especially the results, but often the whole process. So if you create something, if you leave a trail, if you change the physical universe in a way, you experience the behavioral type of connecting with values, and you get a little bit of happiness when you are not procrastinating, basically. It could be something simple, no need to build the next Eiffel Tower or Taj Mahal. You just do the dishes or change the light bulb in the corridor. I mean, I know that you are a man of honor, and if you have promised to change the light bulb, you will change it. There is no need for your wife to remind you every 6 months. But just like Nike, just do it. And here is an example of process of work that I really enjoyed, and I also enjoyed the result. It was Christmas. My father has a pretty decent workshop, so I made my first lamp. I really enjoyed the process. It was fun, it was pleasure, and I also enjoyed the result. And I can always brag with it because it's there. Regarding the attitudinal ones, well, I wish I had a picture where I can show how I, show courage, bravery, and dignity, but I don't have one. It doesn't happen so often. Those are the situations when you have to bear the blows of fate, usually. But if you have a situation and you find difficulties to decide, just think about bravery, courage, and dignity. Probably they will help you make the right decision. If you do the right decision, you will be happy with it throughout the whole of your life, through the rest of your life.
Good. So whenever we connect to our values, whenever we act according to them, we will be more happy. But now, I have a quiz for you. Here are a bunch of jobs, professions before you, and try to find what is common between them. So we have painter, singer, physicist, dancer. Some are here kind of the software developer for some reason.
No, there is similarity indeed.
What? Creative jobs, okay. Something else? What is common? They're happy? Okay. Yeah, they're blue. And they're here. the result-oriented. Okay, we are getting somewhat closer. The thing which is in common between all these jobs was first described by this man here. At this point, I'm a little bit embarrassed because I can't pronounce his name in the right way. So I will let this little buddy here do it instead of me. Oops. He will start. Little buddy.
That's the name.
Yep, he's the master of happiness. Every time I see it, I have a smile on my face. So he described the state of flow. And it's the state when we're so concentrated in something that we stop to notice the passage of time or the world around us. Does this sound familiar to you? Do you experience it at work? I personally do. You know, we're very, very lucky because when we're in the state of flow, we experience the highest level of happiness. So we should take a little time and say thank you that we work this kind of job that we can experience this state. Because it turns out that 20% of the population cannot even understand this state, let alone feel the happiness of it. So whenever we're in that state, we will be more happy. So let's see what should we do to stay longer in this state. Well, the first thing is that we should concentrate, and concentrate hard on a task. If this task is hard enough to keep us entertained during it, and has a learning curve, we will be much more likely to experience this state. And the thing with the learning curve is, whenever we learn something new, the level of fulfillment will be increased, and the levels of dopamine that we receive will be larger. Another thing is, as I said earlier, if the task can be separated into more tasks, we can achieve them more frequently, and we will have dopamine more frequently, which is one of the sources of happiness. And most importantly, this state is much more likely to occur when you're at work. So there's one reason, at least one reason, to go to work with a smile. So the tip here should be go to work, perhaps.
And stay in the flow.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, but it's not only when you're at work you can experience the flow. If you're talking before a large group of people, like now, you can get in the flow. And while you're in the flow, you stop and notice the passage of time. And this is the reason why we were almost overdue our time. We should end soon. But we wanted to add something more. We wanted to have a 360 view of happiness, which is kind of hard for 40 minutes, but we wanted to add something a little bit controversial. So I have again a question for you. How many of you think when you're happy, you'll be a better person? You help others more? Okay, that's pretty much all of you, or almost all of you. Does some one of you think that happiness can have negative effects on ourselves? Well, that's a few, maybe 10 hands that I see. Well, interestingly enough, it turns out that happiness could be bad for us, at least in some situations. There was research done by the senior university, in which they gathered a group of people and gave a set of lottery tickets to one man. And he can decide how many of these lottery tickets he could give to the others. There is no reward for it. And then repeated this experiment a number of times. The result? The people which were more happy before they do it gave much less tickets to the others. So, surprisingly, at least for me, happiness can make us selfish. But there's a bigger problem. Happiness also can be exhausting if you chase it too hard. Whenever we say this is a goal, and we start to chase it too hard, we start to feel it as a duty, and start to feel stressed whenever we fail to achieve it. If we see someone else being happy and us sitting on the couch or being sad, that makes us feel worse. So this is a huge problem. So the tip here is actually quite easy. Just try not to focus too much on happiness. It is something that will come with action, probably. Okay, and back to where we begin. We had a problem that we're 105th out of 156 nations. And we tried to figure out a way to fix this problem. So throughout our presentations, you saw quite a few slides with a red dot on the upper right corner, and we said a bunch of tips for you. Tips which could make you happy. For example, if you use the power of gratitude, you'll be happy. If you go exercise more, you have more of the hormones which you make you happy. And the most important, if you act according to your values, you'll be more happy. But this, if you look at the slides, we have more than 30 tips or so, which are too much to remember. So we tried to synthesize them in one single word. And this word is action. Because happiness is not something that we could receive, find, or buy. It's something that we should build. And we should build by ourselves. Because our happiness is our responsibility.
Indeed, it is. And once you figure out that freedom to do something means that you have a choice, having a choice means that you actually have to make it. There is no option for you not to make a choice. Even if your choice is automatic, even you choose not to do anything, whatever you decide, the responsibility is yours, no matter the consequences. All the consequences are your responsibility. So with this in mind, think about what we said. We are happy when we totally devote our time and focus to some activity. As long as this activity is aligned with our inner values, we will be happy. So please, please make that choice and be happy, because happiness is a choice. Thank you.
Whoa. Thank you. That was really good. And since this is the final lecture and this is our conference, we can do whatever we want. We have slots for 2 questions. So who wants to ask a question? Over there was the first hand, and you spot the second hand.
Where is the second hand? Over there.
So the first hand, can you rise? Can you rise? Yep, stand up. I'll throw. We have to film this. Good catch.
Thank you for your wonderful lecture. So I have one simple question. What inspired you to do this talk?
Wow.
Oh, let's knife, fork, spoon, one. Okay, so I guess that's it.
What inspired us? I guess you are familiar with this feeling when you want to get better, when you want to feel better. We both like to read, we both like to develop ourselves. Plus, I had a request from a friend who asked me to do some things on this topic. And I know that Vlado is a good friend of mine who would help, and he was so kind to help me with it, so we both did it. That's all.
My motivation was a little bit different. Once, after I was to work Friday night, I asked myself, am I happy? And I actually answered no to myself. And I know that without actions, there will be no results. So that was the reason why I wanted to join this project and to learn what happiness is, perhaps, or not, and try to act, do something to change my levels of happiness.
And we have the second here. Yeah.
Okay, hi. You said that setting goals can help you feel better, let's say. So that's what I did actually last couple of months. And I separated them into smaller goals so I can feel, let's say, the satisfaction each day. But then there was one problem for me, because each time I was fulfilling my goal for the day, I kind of ask myself, okay, let's ask what are other guys doing and how they're managing to solve it. And then you know, there is always an Asian guy who is doing better than you. so I was kind of, yeah, now I'm feeling depressed because I did something. Yes, I pat on my back, but then, yeah, how am I able to resolve this? Because if I wanted to, let's say, grow at some certain rate, I need to compare always with the better, right?
Yep.
But comparing with the better is kind of discouraging, at least Could be, let's say.
Well, yeah, it could be discouraging. It could be a stimulus as well. So in the morning, we had a chat with Vlado, and we said that actually all of those subtopics that we researched are huge enough to make a PhD on. But on your specific question, when you set goals and you are chasing those goals and that's your only focus, you can never be happy, because once you are close to the goal, to achieving it, you know that you are already there. So you're already looking at the next goal, and you don't have the time to really pat yourself on the back, to feel the excitement, because you are already at the next goal. You're never there. That's one thing.
And I have a very simple tip for you. Do not compare yourself to others. This will never result in happiness, never ever, because there's someone clever, faster, stronger than you, whatever you do. And it won't end in a good way.
The thing is to enjoy the process. I think Buddhists say that the path is important. So if you have chosen those goals and this path, and if you have chosen it for real reasons that are true, that you truly believe, you will enjoy the path, and the end result wouldn't matter that much. It would matter, of course. It's a measure, but it's more important to enjoy the path. By the way, if you download our materials, at the end we have added links to many articles and videos that are not so difficult to ingest, not from Google Scholar. They are fun to watch, and probably you could find some answers there.
All right. Once again, let's thank them.